Hello, everybody. It's Dr. B and Elizabeth here, and we are ready to rock and roll with our Halloween bling. Yes, it's that time of year, and we are going to give you some spooky, fun things for your practice. So, we want to know, are you rocking and rolling in your practice, or are you stalling? So, Elizabeth, you've got a new outfit for the holiday season, and she's ready to share it with all of you. So, she's going to take a bit of a nap while we chat, and she'll be back to wish you goodbye when we're done. So you have a little seat there, girlfriend, and we are decked out. Hopefully, you have your Halloween bling ready to give out to your little kidlings. And hopefully, it is some fun gigabytes that don't involve sugar or dyes or that kind of stuff that is going to make those kids' brains go crazy brain. So, rocking and rolling. Do you know the proper stages and phases and motor movement patterns for fostering optimal rolling? Well, we're going to tell you about them. How's that? So, first of all, the stages and ages of rolling. Hopefully, my ring doesn't go too blingy bling on the camera. So, ages. Let's talk ages first. Let's not talk age because some of us that are aging don't want to talk age, but for little fiddle farts, about 3 months ish. Now, remember, milestones are ishes, right? It's a month on either side. So we don't have these hard, fast, they've got to be doing this by this age or that by that age. We want to make sure that they do these motor movement patterns in their developmental journey, but it can be ish. Okay. And interestingly, I got a article a month or two ago, and it was defining developmental delays. What defines a developmental delay in a child? And their main focus was that a child does not meet normal motor milestones compared to their peers. And the crazy thing is the AAP, a year or two ago, took crawling out of the developmental milestones paradigm, which is, it just baffles me. It doesn't make sense in my brain, but nonetheless, we're going to focus on rolling today. But rolling is a necessary precursor um, to obtaining good core control to later go on and have a good cross crawl pattern. And why is that? Is because about age of 3 months ish, you're going to start see the little fiddle fart rolling from bottom up. So their patterns are going to go from bottom up first. That means that they're going to start rolling through their pelvis into their core, into their thoracic spine, and then through the shoulders. So that's about the first 3 months. And then about 6 months, they're going to start rolling. They should start rolling from top down. That means they're going to start the roll from their shoulders through their trunk, and then their pelvis is the last to roll. Now, this should initially, it can take place as what I call a log roll, where, let's get Elizabeth on here, where they actually just roll through the pelvis in a corkscrew up onto their side. And then they can finish the roll. Now that pattern might be present till about 5 months-ish. But after that point, you don't want to see them start that roll and into a log roll and kind of stuck on their side and flop over. You want to see that corkscrew all the way through the trunk and through the shoulders if they're going from bottom up. Or again, by 6 months, they should be doing a good corkscrew roll, starting with their shoulders through the trunk and through the pelvis. Teitelbaum, there's a famous study by Dr. Teitelbaum that was like 1998, where he looked at motor movement patterns on kiddos that later on were diagnosed of having autism. And one of the movement characteristics that he noted was that they never went through this corkscrew roll. They just went to that, they rolled that log roll into their side and then kind of plopped over. So this is a key milestone that we want to look at between the ages, excuse me, 3 and 6 months. Now, why is that corkscrew roll important? It's important because it's going to foster good core stability, core postural stability, for them to be able to later on pivot off their axis. And that is simply needed to walk through space, to be able to manage moving through their environment in a safe, secure manner without flipping off the prefrontal cortex. And so many of these kiddos that are on, especially on the spectrum, have difficulty with that social environmental engagement system, and that prefrontal cortex flips off. So that's your start. Okay, 3 months, start rolling through the pelvis, then through the trunk and to the shoulders. 6 months starts with the corkscrew roll through the shoulders, down through the trunk and into the pelvis. The first 5 months-ish, if they kind of start rolling and plop on their side in that log roll fashion, then complete the roll, that's fine, as long as we see them progress through a full corkscrew roll. Okay, so that is your first ages and stages, and your proper movement pattern that you want to see going on. Now, let's backtrack just 1 minute, because we've talked about a few episodes ago, we were talking about a lot about tummy time and how important there's different ages and stages of tummy time. And one of them is coming up and pushing up about 3 months-ish, and starting to gain this proximal joint stability in the shoulders. Well, that is going to be a precursor to our rolling, because when we start to getting into those rolling patterns, once they roll over, especially from supine to prone and get in that prone position, you want to be able to make sure they have enough joint stability to pull their arm out underneath them and then kind of get up. Okay, so we want to make sure that that tummy time and that rolling kind of go mingle together, and we're seeing these progressive motor patterns. Now, one of the primitive reflexes associated, or the primary primitive reflex associated with this corkscrew rolling, is the spinal galant reflex. Okay. The spinal galant reflex is, again, where if you are checking for it, you are stroking just an inch away from the spinal cord. You're just stroking down and seeing if they have that, the abduction flinch. Okay. Spinal galant is associated with enuresis past the age of 5, especially daytime enuresis. It's associated with proprioceptive dysmaturation of the proprioceptive system, of the tactile system, and of the auditory system. So these are some things that might be associated with, if they don't go through that proper rolling movement pattern, that spinal galant reflex might hang out for longer than we want it to. So of course we go from this rolling and we get on our tummy, and then we have good proximal joint stability, hopefully, because we went through tummy time, we went through rolling. They get up on their hands and knees and start to rock back and forth. That's that progressive movement. Subluxation patterns. Pretty much the entire spine, right, is associated with any of these developmental delays or these aberrant motor movement patterns. And but specifically what you want to make sure is that you're really keeping that T9 through L2 subluxation free. Absolutely the pelvis, right? Because if they start at 3 months from pelvis up, you want to make sure that that pelvis isn't subluxated, so they can get that corkscrew, that rotational movement. And the cervical spine. One of the things is, when they get a little bit older, when they're going from supine to prone, the SCMs have to engage in order for them to get their head up and get into that rotational movement. So if we have any subluxations in the cervical spine, and we're not able to engage those SCMs, if you have a plagiocephaly little fiddle fart, um, torticollis little fiddle fart, they might be delayed in their rolling patterns because those SCMs can't engage properly. So those are some areas that you really want to keep subluxation free and keep a keen eye on. So there's some things about your keen eye on neural movement patterns for rolling. Now, if the little fiddle fart is having trouble, and you want them to roll in both directions, right? Okay, you want them to roll left to right and right to left, supine to prone and prone to supine. If they're missing one side, this is something we really should be mindful of. We want them rolling both ways because sometimes there can be a one-sided neglect, meaning their brain isn't getting as much stimulation from the left side or the right side to know that they have a left side or right side to use. And that's really important, especially for learning attention behavior in the school age years. So some of the things you want to do is have caregivers do a lot of deep joint compression, proprioceptive input to both sides of the body. And more so maybe 10 times on the left side if they have more of a left side neglect, and 5 times on the right. And you're simply having them go and do deep joint compression all the way up the arms and all the way down and all the way up and down the leg. And then you can even do some finger compression and distraction, okay, just to give that proprioceptive input to the side that they're having a little bit of neglect on. The other thing is every diaper change, have them do crossovers. Have the opposite arm, opposite leg, and they're just crossing over the midline and meeting those together 10 times on each side. Again, waking up the brain, letting the brain know I have a left side, a right side, an upper body, and a lower body, so that I can use these appropriately. So those are some tools that you can use to help them if they have a one-sided neglect. Okay, well, there you have it on our rolling ages and stages and proper rolling. Keep your eye out on these little farts if they're not doing this. What is your message to the caregivers? Okay, your message is, Mom and Dad, I'm noticing that Nancy's having a little bit difficulty getting from her belly to her back. But this is an important stage, and we want to make sure that it occurs in proper biomechanics, that her body's able to do this in the right fashion, in the right form. Because what it's actually doing is it is a form of brain development, where the Nancy at this point is actually fostering proper input into the brain so that the brain knows the status of the body and can send proper messages back. But there must be a block going on. In our world, we call it a vertebral subluxation. So I want to check Nancy to see if there's any areas of her spine that might be restricting her from being able to get into this proper motor pattern. And so what we need to do is let me check her today, and let's build a plan together so that we can get her into this proper movements. Because Mom, like if your neck is bothering you, you might be more guarded and can't look one way or the other, right? Like backing up to drive your car, that's kind of dangerous, right? Well, every time we do a movement, it's kind of like somebody that had a stroke, right? If they had a stroke on the left side of their brain, their right side might not work as well. Now, Nancy didn't have a stroke, but the messages from the left side of her brain might not be getting down to her right side of the brain as good as we need it to. Or Mom, when you're trying to turn and you can't turn as far, okay? That's just a restriction from the brain to the body and the body to the brain. It's just like a little mixed signal in there. So we're going to check Nancy today. We're going to clear up any maybe signals that aren't getting through. And then what I propose to do is we're going to watch her over the next 2 to 4 weeks, whatever you feel is proper, Doc. Okay, you're the one in the room with the little fiddle fart. I'm just giving you some things, thoughts, lingo to consider. So we're going to make sure that we keep those restrictions clear. We're going to repattern that program from her body to the brain. And then what is a really good thing is just like going to the dentist, once we get her cleared and she's in that good rolling pattern, she's taken off, we'd like to check to make sure that the next milestone that she should be meeting is done in the proper fashion. So we'll check her in about a month again, and we'll just keep her on a monthly schedule. So that way we can make sure that she meets all those developmental milestones at the right ages, stages, and in the proper fashion. And that way we're optimizing actually brain building. And that's how you can build what I call a milestone practice. So, some tools for you to think about and some tips. And you have a great Halloween. And we will see you in November before turkey time. And until then, Elizabeth and I are wishing you all a glowy, spooky Halloween. We'll see you next month. ChiroSecure, thank you for this opportunity to teach the world about pediatric chiropractic. You're amazing, and we'll see you next month.
Today's pediatric show, Look to the Children, was brought to you by ChiroSecure.